Hey guys, it's Josh with Project Idea again, where we put ideas into action. Today we're going to be working on building the Fortnite rear guard back bling. This is from Season 5 of Fortnite. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and hit the bell icon to be notified of any future videos that I may post. Also, if you like this video, make sure and give it a thumbs up. The first thing I'm doing here is cutting a 18-inch diameter circle out of some EVA foam floor mats. Next, I used a heat gun and some bowls to shape this circle into more of a dome shape. I did heat both sides of this very thoroughly before trying to shape it. When forming this in the other bowl, you want to try to prevent as much buckling as possible. After cooling down a little bit, this is what your dome should look like. And of course, that's going to be the front of the shield. I wanted this to lay flat on another surface, so I used a belt sander to sand down these edges. As you can see, this gets very messy, so make sure you're wearing a mask to protect your lungs. Next, I traced that circle onto another EVA foam floor mat. This will be the back of the shield, and it will just lay flat. Now it's time to put the straps on. So I'll measure out where it's going to be and mark each of these areas I'm going to put the straps through. The straps I will be using are just double-sided Velcro pieces. I like using these because you can actually unstrap it and strap it a different way. It may make it easier for hanging one way or for carrying on your arm another way. They're very versatile. Once the straps are on, then you can start gluing the two pieces, the two halves of the shield together. I use contact cement for this. Contact cement works wonderful for this part. Just make sure when you do this to glue the rough sides of the mats towards each other. That way you get a smooth surface on the entire outside of the shield. Next, I started measuring out some strips to go around the edge. This is out of 2mm craft foam, and I made each of these strips 1 3/8 inch wide. I glued these on with contact cement as well. When it's all done, this will look like metal trim around the edge of the shield. When putting these strips on, just work from one end to the other, and then you can kind of work it onto the front side of the shield as well. When it's all said and done, this is what it should look like after you get that trim piece on. I then marked the center point with a Sharpie and marked a line down the middle. I also marked off where the boards will be on this shield as well. I used my knife to cut about halfway down into the foam where each of the boards will be on this. Then I took the knife again and cut about a 45-degree angle just to cut a channel out of this to make it a little bit bigger. Make sure not to cut the center line. That's just a reference point is all that is. I also used a heat gun just to close up the cells on each of these. After that, I started working on the large spike that goes in the middle of the shield, and for this I used some insulation foam. It's like styrofoam, but it's very dense foam, and I glued two pieces together to get it thick enough, and then started shaping it on the bandsaw into a circle. I also cut some of the corners off of this just so that when I was using it on the belt sander, it wouldn't make quite as much dust. As it is, this is probably about 4 inches or so tall. I did not make the spike that tall, so I did cut this down a little bit in the end. After you get the shape of the spike roughed out, then you can take I use 60 grit sandpaper here and hand sanded it down to make it a little more smooth. After that, I used a 400 grit and this smoothed things down a little bit more. I then coated the spike in Mod Podge several times. I used several coats on this because I knew I was going to be spray painting it, and if you spray paint this foam, it will eat it up. So make sure and coat this. For the llama design on the shield, I just hand drew the template onto a piece of paper and made sure that it was going to be the right size for what I needed on the shield. And then I traced all of this with a silver Sharpie over to some 4mm craft foam in this case. I did this in 2 parts, and later on I will actually glue these together. Once the outline of these were done, I started filling in all of the details on each of these. And this is what they'll look like when I end up gluing them together. I used a rotary tool to lightly cut in all the details on each of the llamas. After the details were cut out, I glued both halves of the llamas together, and I used contact cement to do this. I also used contact cement to glue the llamas to the shield. As you can see here, I outlined the llamas first. That way I could see where to put the contact cement, and put contact cement on both sides, and I laid it very carefully in that outline. Next, I worked on the trim piece that goes around the spike in the middle of the shield. Once again, on this I used 4mm craft foam, so it's a little bit thicker. Although I traced around the spike here, I made sure to cut inside of that line because it was a tighter fit that. After cutting this trim piece out, I use a Sharpie just to mark 9 spots around it. This will be where like the rivets around the trim are. I used my rotary tool with a sanding drum on the end of it just to sand out a little bit here, just to make those rivets. It was a very easy way to make the rivets. Then I used hot glue to glue the spike down and the trim piece all at one time. The shield also has smaller spikes all around the shield. There's 12 of these, so I just cut triangles from EVA foam floor mats. I then shaped these a little more with scissors and a sanding drum with my rotary tool. I glued each one of these on using hot glue. After that, I started the painting. On this, I used Plasti Dip at first. I wanted the layers of paint to show up a little brighter, so instead of leaving it black, I spray painted it white to give a brighter finish to all the rest of the paints I layer on top. You could skip this step if you use white Plasti Dip. Next, I spray painted the entire shield silver, like a silver metallic spray paint. After all that had dried, I was able to start painting the wood color. I started out with a caramel colored acrylic paint as the base coat. I did an outline of the entire wood area first, being careful not to get any of this paint on the silver where the metal would be. Once the outline was done, I could fill in the rest of the areas that were going to be wood with the caramel color. While the base coat is still wet is when I like to start working on making the wood grain look. I use some darker browns and some lighter like tan color. I just kind of work that in, making it look a little more like a wood grain color. Sometimes I even use both colors at the same time, like the darker brown here and the tan, both on the brush, one on each side. Just kind of work that in. Since this is acrylic paint rather than oil paint, I seal everything up with a clear coat. Once the clear coat was dry on this, I was able to go back with an acrylic wash. I used several different darker colors with this, with water mixed in, and then after putting it all on the entire shield, I wiped a lot of that off. Also, after this, I don't show it on here, but where I had the carved outlines on the shield, the wood part as well as the metal, I went ahead and darkened that up with a small brush and black paint as well. And that is pretty well going to be it for the rear guard. This is the final product right here. I hope you guys like this build. If you do, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified on any future videos we have. You may also want to check out some of my older videos, so check out my YouTube channel for that, and check my social media apps too if you want to friend me on those. Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.